This episode is brought to you by Audible. Alex, what do you know about Audible?
Not a whole lot. Tell me something.
Oh, Audible has over 1 million books that you can get while you're on the road. We're in Los Angeles. We're stuck in traffic a lot. I like Audible. I actually listen to a lot of Stephen King books. I actually never read it. I actually listened to it. All the Gunslinger books, didn't read those. I listened to them. So
And I
with
never learned how
our
to
trial,
read, so
yeah. So and he's a screenwriter too. It's really
yeah,
confusing.
I can write, but I
But
can't read.
if you guys are interested in Audible, you can get a free 30-day trial. What's great about Audible as well is you get one free book to keep a month. Even if you cancel Audible, you actually get to keep your books. So you can go to audibletrial.com/MDXpods and get a free trial, and we get a little bit of monies to help keep the lights on. So we hope you enjoy the episode. The reason we bring this up, Stephen King, Firestarter, that's what we watched. Enjoy the show.
Remake, rewind, blast from the past, does it stand the test of time? Remake, rewind.
Hey everyone, this is Mike from MDXpods. I've got my buddy Alex with me. How you doing, bud?
You know, I'm hanging in there.
We're back. We took a one episode hiatus from Remake Rewind, the podcast we decided remakes and reboots should have happened. I was in Barcelona for about a week and a half and then hit another trade show. So we uploaded a best of episode, one of my favorite episodes that Alex and I recorded together, where we talked about movies that shouldn't be remade, but if they had to be, here are our pitches. So hopefully you guys went back and re-listened to that episode or listened to it for the first time.
That's a fun
But we're
episode.
back. My voice is a little off. I've been at a 2-day trade show, and I've done multiple dinners and drinks with people. So I'm pretty fried, but I'm going to do this because I love talking about movies with my buddy Alex. And
Yeah.
I'm in a hotel. I don't have my pop filter because I don't have anywhere to mount it to the desk without damaging it. So I'm just going to avoid the poppity pop, 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 pop sounds and as best I can. And you guys are just going to have to deal with it. So deal with it.
Be nice to our listeners.
No, they have the pleasure of listening to us talk.
I
Speak.
choose you.
So we're back. We're back with a classic movie, classic movie, kind of a cult classic. This is one that Alex really wanted us to do. I kind of was resistant to it, but I had a little bit of fun.
I had a little bit of fun.
Alex gave me like this little weird look on the video call, even though he brought this movie up like 3 times over the last 2 months.
I don't remember bringing it up 3 times, but
You brought it up a couple of times, like, hey, this movie's coming out. You did, understandably, a couple weeks ago. I heard this was bad. Do we really need to do it? But we kind of committed to doing it, so might as well.
I mean, yeah, we do plenty of stinkers here. That's part of
so
the fun.
We're going to be talking about Firestarter from 1984 and the 2022. Technically, it went to theaters, but it's more of like a Peacock, a Peacock original. I had to pay for Peacock for a month. It's fine.
What else is on Peacock that we like?
You know, honestly, so I've been traveling, and in the last when we get to what have you been up to, bud, my list is going to be really long because I've spent 50 hours on an airplane in the last 2 weeks.
And it's all Peacock stuff.
No, Peacock's just been this week, but I started Suits, and Suits is on Peacock, and I'm really enjoying it.
Nice.
And there's actually a decent amount of good movies on Peacock. I might keep it for a month or two and get through some things.
Sweet.
But yeah, that's not what we're here to talk. We're not here to talk about Peacock. And of course, that's a hard P sound, so that's going to pop, 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 pop. Have you seen Firestarter from 1984, the original one with Drew Barrymore?
I haven't. That's why I was sort of excited to check out the original and the remake now that they're out and cover them for the podcast. Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to my friend Sarah Coffin. Firestarter is one of her favorite movies. She is a very outspoken proponent for equal rights, and she's somebody who fights with people on Facebook and gets in Facebook jail quite a lot. So one of her alter egos is named after a character. I don't want to say the actual character name that she uses as an alter ego because I don't want the account to get banned or flagged. But this is a shout out to Sarah Coffin, one of my really good friends who loves Firestarter. So,
Now, is
do
it
you
a
wanna
coffin
summarize-
like where you put dead people, or like if you have coronavirus?
KOFFIN, where you put the deads.
Spooky.
Yeah. Do you want to summarize this one or the new one?
I'll do this one.
All right, summarize it, bud.
Andrew McGee and his daughter Charlene/Charlie are on the run from a mysterious government agency known as The Shop, particularly by Martin Sheen's character and George C. Scott in Redface. Andrew and his wife were involved in a drug trial run by The Shop in college, which resulted in him getting the power to Jedi mind trick people and eventually gave Charlie the power of pyrokinesis.
Yep,
That's kind of it.
pretty accurate. Yeah.
And also, George C. Scott might be a pedophile
Oh, in the movie or in real life?
in the movie.
Yeah, so there's some interesting things about this movie. So I have seen this movie, but I saw it like under 10 years old. Like I remember seeing it, but I didn't really remember the movie.
Have you read the story?
No, I haven't.
Okay, me either.
I got into Stephen King a few years ago, so I've read a few books over the last couple of years, but I haven't by any means got to all of them, although he has like 270,000 books that he's written because he writes like one a day. It's insane. But this one, I vaguely remember. I remembered this one being fun, but watching it, I was not really into it until like the last 15, 20 minutes in the movie. Like there's a few moments that are fun, but like the last 15, 20 minutes kind of rips in a good way.
Yeah, I feel like if you saw this as a kid or as a teenager, it would be a lot of fun. As an adult, seeing it for the first time didn't do a whole lot for me, but you know, I understand why people have a fondness for it. I think I just missed my window.
What's interesting about this one, so during the 80s was when all of Stephen King's stuff started getting made into movies and miniseries and whatnot. This was his least favorite, but before he directed Maximum Overdrive, eventually he basically denounced like every one of his adaptations. And so finally they were like, you make one then. So he made Maximum Overdrive, which is one of the worst movies ever made. But he actually like was very vocally opposed to this movie after it came out. And the director was like really upset because he's like, first off, Stephen King wrote the script. We had other people do passes, but he had script approval. He had casting approval, and he was on set almost every day. And he approved of it almost every single day. But then once the movie came out and got blasted, of course, he hated it. So there was a little bit of tension between him and the director afterwards. But like this movie's slow.
Yeah.
And it stars a bunch of like, hey, it's those guys. Because even in this day, like Martin Sheen he was famous, but David Keith is Andy. He's just one of those guys who shows up and
Not
everything.
Keith David.
Not Keith David Keith. But he's the guy he plays Ben Affleck, Daredevil's dad in the Daredevil movie. And he's just one of these guys. You see him in a lot of like bit parts and TV shows. Like you definitely know him when you see him.
Yeah.
And then this movie's definitely carried by Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, I think Drew Barrymore is, very charismatic and delightful in all of her scenes, and not surprising that she went on to become who she is. It's definitely one of the good things about this movie.
Do you think she was doing drugs by this point yet?
I don't know. I'm not going to speculate.
Well, I mean, she went into rehab the first time at like 12 years old. Yeah. So maybe.
Being a child star is tricky.
Not easy.
Heather Locklear too. It's her mom.
This was her first movie role.
Oh, that's wild. I felt like the whole family was really well cast. I believe that Drew Barrymore would be the offspring of those two people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna rotate my camera.
Is everything okay over there? You're upside down?
Yeah,
You're upside down?
My phone was slightly blocking my notes, so I just was moving it to the other side, and then it was my microphone was blocking the camera, so I was rotating it so you can see my pretty face.
Yeah.
This movie has like a lot of weird flashbacks that like just go back to it, and then they're just like really trippy. Like when they go back to the experiment, like everybody's just like bleeding from the face and like screaming in horror, and then you see Andy and Heather Locklear's character, the mom, like just kind of like tripping out and be like, whoa, like kind of enjoying it. Yeah. And then they get powers where it gives them nosebleeds and whatnot when they use their powers. So
does Heather Locklear's character really use her powers in this one?
She doesn't use her powers at all.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to have telekinesis. Charlie actually has all three. So she has telekinesis, she has the pyrokinesis, and she can also do the push, which is what they call controlling people's minds.
Mindokinesis.
Mindokinesis. Like I had some issues with the push and Andy. Like
I like the face that he makes.
yeah, like he's got long kind of hair and he's like pushing it back and he's really like doing a constipated look and then blood starts pouring out his nose.
I
But
like it,
he does some interesting things with it, which makes the ending pretty inexplicable because there's points where he's like he tells soldiers to like kill other soldiers who are tracking him, and then other times he's like you're blind, and then the person's like my eyes, and it's like the really awful over the top acting. Like the guy who he says is blind, like he just like drops the gun and is like really stiff overacting motions, and it's just like it's so bad. And then the way he screams just like my eyes, like he just said you're blind. Like, do your eyes hurt? Like, I don't understand what that was. Like, I would be like, what? I can't see. Like, my eyes makes it sound like you're in pain.
Yeah, he was just very surprised,
Yeah, I don't know. But at the end of the movie, I mean, and we can go through the plot a little bit, but at the end of the movie, there's a point where throughout the movie, Andy has used the push to get people to kill each other, to shoot at each other. But at the very end, when his life actually depends on it, he just tells somebody to like jump off of a loft that's like 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And then gets killed because he didn't actually take like a full measure. It was a really weird and bizarre.
Yeah, it's almost like the movie's not super well made.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just Charlie and Andy like on the road getting into mishaps. Like there's a point where they're just walking on the side of the they're walking on the side of, there's a point where they're walking on the side of the freeway and Andy kind of falls down a hill.
It's like slapstick.
Just like rolls down the hill and he's just like unconscious, and Charlie's like, "Wake up, Daddy, wake up!" And then he's just like, "Ah, ah," and then they just go back to hitchhiking.
Yeah, and they're like, "Ah, you're my favorite. I'm crazy about you. I'm crazy about you too.
Crazy about you too.
All right, well, let's hitchhike back down this road while the government chases us."
What? And then they pull like a Logan. So Logan ripped off this movie where like they're on the road with like a teen with very special powers that the government's on. That's what Logan ripped off. Is this movie really did? But there's a point where they do it in Logan, and it's one of my biggest criticisms of Logan, despite how great that movie is. And James Mangold did a great job, and Hugh Jackman did a great job. Everyone did a great job in Logan. But there's a point in both these movies.
James Man Silver.
No, they don't. That'd be weird.
He's Mangold because he's good.
But they're on the run from this like covert part of the government, and they run into these people that are nice. And they go to these people's houses and put them in danger. That happens in Logan in this. So they show up to this like old farmer dude. They get hitchhiking with him. They're like, "Oh, we'll get some food. You can come over for dinner."
You're talking about Art Carney's character Irv and the wife in the Iron Lung.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no,
so
she's not in the Iron Lung in this one.
No, that's the other one. But
I was going to say he's the ticket taker in Lost Action Hero. Did you notice that?
He is. Yeah. So they show up. And they have dinner, and then, of course, the bad guys show up. Oh, and also Charlie also has, like, precognition as well. Like, she can see a few minutes into the future randomly when it's convenient. So she's like, oh, the bad guys are coming. And throughout the movie, she's like, I don't want to do bad things. I don't want to do bad things. And the dad's like, yeah, don't do bad things unless I tell you to. And she just, like, they're like, come with us. And so she lights a few people on fire. She gets Irv shot. Oh no, that's in the other one. But like Irv like has to like duck for cover. It's super weird. Like the movies are so similar. But like all these bad guys show up and start firing. She blows up cars and everything, and then they're like, "Yeah, we should probably leave. Sorry for putting you in danger, Irv." And then, like you said, Redface. There's a guy who's a Native American tracker called Rainbird, played
John
by a white man,
George C. Scott.
Rainbird. Yeah, and that's all weird. He snipes them with tranq darts and takes them to the top secret facility. And then that whole thing is bizarre. Why don't you, I've been talking a lot. Why don't you tell our listeners like what was going on at the facility?
Yeah, they bring the Andrew and Charlie to this this like research facility, in their base, but it's down in the basement of this building or whatever. And it's all made up to look like a Victorian house, but they're prisons and they're kept in separate rooms. and it just goes on forever. And they're trying to get Charlie to use her powers so that they can sort of study them and figure out how to control her and get her to control her powers. And I don't know what they want from Andrew, really. I think they're just trying to keep him alive in case they need him, but they're trying to like break him too.
Well, it's the reason they did that was they had the feeling that if they killed him, she would know. So they wanted him nearby so they could lie to her and say, if you do what we tell you to do, we'll let you see your father. And the intention was they were never going to let that happen.
Yeah, that wasn't the idea at first, but right, that's what it became.
Yeah. What was weird about that whole situation is they had Rainbird go in, and like this whole thing was like, his thing was, once you figured out, like Martin Sheen just wants to figure out why these three people have powers and nobody else survived the experiments. So they want to just figure out how it works so they can replicate it. And John Rainbird is just like, cool, once you figure that out, I want you to give them to me. And they're like, what are you going to do?
He says, I want you to give the child to me. He's only interested in Charlie.
Yeah, and he's just like, why do you want the girl? It doesn't matter. That's my payment. You're going to give the girl to me. And like eventually he explains that she's going to get so powerful she could do like a nuclear explosion and she's dangerous, so he wants to kill her. But then it's like really fucked up because he pretends to be like a lowly janitor who comes in.
What he says is that he wants to kill her, and he knows that when she dies that her powers will go into him. That's his plan.
Yeah, that's fucking weird, man.
And there's no like explanation for that in the movie. He's just like, I know this is going to happen, so that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
and
it's super weird.
And that kind of plays into the red face for me too. It's just like, oh, this mystical thing is going to happen where I'm one with this, and there's a transfer of power when I kill something, blah blah blah. And it feels like racist to Native Americans, to that whole culture. It's like mystical, you know?
Yeah. And then you mentioned that there's kind of like some pedo vibes to it because he like shows up pretending to be the janitor, and like her jail cell's like a little 1-bedroom apartment. Like she's got a living room and a TV. She's got like an Atari or a ColecoVision or something like that.
ColecoVision, yeah, that's on my notes.
Yeah, so she's got like a little video game system, and then like Rainbird comes and says his name is John. He's like, I'm just here to take out the trash. Oh, you're such a great little girl. We should be friends.
I'm Gene Parmesan.
It's you. Has him like, I bet you could teach me how to play video games. And then he has this like, they do a fake lightning storm to cut the power to make him like work with her a little bit. And he's like, I'm scared of lightning. We could be thunder buddies.
That's what we should watch, Ted.
Yeah, so she's like really friendly. So eventually there's a point where we find out that Andy is pretending to lose his powers to medication so that way he can eventually try to escape. And he's able to overpower Martin Sheen with his mind and tells Martin Sheen, like, you're going to go have somebody come and get my daughter at this time. You're going to give her a note. And the note tells, Charlie, like, don't fucking tell anybody. Like, you're just going to come to the stables at this time. And, of course, she tells John, who's actually a bad guy. And so, like, the finale of the movie is they show up to this barn. John Rainbird's hiding up in the rafters. Right when they're about to escape, Rainbird, like, exposes himself. He doesn't expose himself. That sounds bad. He reveals himself. That still sounds bad. He reveals his presence that he's been hiding. And he tells Martin Sheen, like, kill that bitch. Immediately, Rainbird shoots Martin Sheen's character, and then instead of telling Rainbird to shoot himself or go blind or any number of things, be paralyzed, like he tells people to do all these different things. But can he only tell people to do something one time? Like, is that how the power works? Like, you can only do something once? I don't know. But he tells the guy to like jump off this building that's 10 feet high, and the guy just falls.
It's
like
a hayloft. They're in a barn.
Yeah, he's just like like Peter Griffin, and then just shoots the dad. And then Andy's like, kill them all, Charlie. Kill them all. Burn it to the ground. Never stop killing people. Keep on killing people.
Which is kind of the opposite of what he's been telling her the whole movie.
Yeah. But then, like, Rainbird, because he has that relationship, and she's like, John, should I kill you? And he's like, nah, don't kill me. But Dad says I should kill you. Nah, don't kill me. And if you kill me, you're a fire person. You're going to burn down the barn, and look at all these pretty horses. Do you want to kill the horses? And she's like, fuck, I don't want to kill horses, but Dad told me to kill you. And then goes to shoot her, and she's like, "Oh no!" and like gets so hot that the bullet burns and explodes, and then she goes full Firestarter. And this is where the movie kind of kicks ass. Like she murders like 100 people.
Yeah, that part's pretty tight.
Yeah, there's like fireballs going all over the place, people getting lit on fire, burned to a crisp. Like I don't know if this is like telekinesis and the pyrokinesis, but like these is like slow moving, almost like homing rocket, like fireballs going around people.
She
it's
shot
all
a dude into a
practical
tree.
effects. Yeah, that was weird. Like the fireball came at a downward angle, and then it was almost like pull, like billiards, where like it bounced up and like it sent him flying 150 feet in the air to a tree like 200 feet away.
You know, it's just standard trigonometry.
Yeah. Sine equals cosine.
Yeah.
Over hypotenuse.
That was a lot of
Yeah,
fun though. I like when they had the guys in the fire suits at the end, and they caught on fire,
Yeah.
and they had like the flame retardant suits. They're like,
Well,
the
she also,
suits,
like,
they do
melted
nothing.
cinder blocks. Like she melts cinder blocks in the lab. They're like, these are cinder blocks. It's the last 20 minutes alone was worth watching the movie, but there's a lot of holes in the logic, inconsistency with powers.
You know, it just feels a little. You feel it feels a little dated.
Yeah.
You feel the era that it's from.
So, in a lot of the night scenes, because she was 8 years old when she made this movie, they actually used a little person as a double
Sure.
for her. So that's fine. This was supposed to be directed by John Carpenter, but he lost it because he actually had a script written with Bill Lancaster, who did the screenplay for the thing. But the thing that we've talked about, before, was a commercial flop, and it just became a huge hit over the decades. But it tanked. So yeah, the John Carpenter got fired from it, and then they brought in
Mark Lester.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of explains why John Carpenter does the music for the 2022 one.
Which is interesting, because I had some notes about the music, and then I felt bad when I saw it was John Carpenter, because I generally like his scores. But
the music was my favorite part.
I did not care. We'll get into it. But you have any other notes or anything before we move on to our other segments?
Let's see. The prison rooms were weird. They had paintings of James Madison and a stork. I like the line. Actually, he's more of a boy. His name's Necromancer. I felt like David Keith had big hair just so he could do the mind control gesture.
Yeah, for sure.
David Keith is also, you mentioned Daredevil. He's also in Indian in the Cupboard, or Native American in the Cupboard.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the cowboy in that.
I like the explosion at the ranch at Irv's house. Oh,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Irv's wife
she goes back.
Irv's wife is Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And I learned that she's also in Virtuosity, which we should definitely watch.
I would love to watch Virtuosity. I like that movie. And then she goes back. Just on a note, she kills conservatively 200 people. People are trying to run away and beg for their lives, and she's like, no mercy, murder, murder, murder. And then she just goes back to the farmer's house and is like, raise me. The guy's like 70 years old. He doesn't have time to raise a fucking 8-year-old.
Well, they wanted a daughter and they couldn't have one. I also realized this is basically like an X-Men story. She's a mutant, and they're on the run from Bolivar Trask or whoever.
Yeah, she's X-23. This is like I said, we could have totally done this in Logan, and it would have totally matched up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the ending is pretty much the same too. So
why did he make him at the beginning? He the dad doesn't have money to pay for a cab, but they have to get in a cab to get away from the government guys chasing them. So he gets in the cab and he makes the cab driver believe that he's looking at a $500 bill, and the cab driver's like, $500? I'll do anything for that. And I was just thinking, there's no such thing as a $500 bill, right?
Maybe in the 80s there were. Let's find out.
Why not make it like $1,000 bill?
Or why not just tell him to fucking do it?
Yeah.
He has mind control already.
Yeah. Why make it a fake bill? I just feel like that would be harder to believe. Be harder to make him accept that reality.
So the $500 bill was real.
No shit.
It went from 1945 to 1969. So, yeah, there was a $500 bill. So...
Well, until 1969, there shouldn't...
Yeah, but there still would have been in circulation.
I
if somebody had an old... Yeah. So
Seems
You
like
know what?
seems like a distracting choice.
Yeah, it is what it is. I don't know.
It is what it is.
It's of all of the things in that when he could have just said, "Drive me," and he would have had to do it.
Yeah,
the
that makes the most
$500 bill
sense.
thing. Yeah,
I
so,
already paid you.
Yeah, any number of that.
Yeah.
Anything. There's times where just the logic doesn't make any sense.
That's true.
All right.
All right.
We
did it.
What have you been up to, bud?
Yeah, I saw. I rewatched Don't Think Twice for the first time in a few years.
Remind me which one that is.
That is the one with Karen Gilling. No, not Karen Gilling. Gillian Jacobs. I got my gills confused.
Oh,
Gillian
it's the
Jacobs from
improv
Community.
movie.
Right. And
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Keegan
yeah,
Michael Key. Directed by Mike Birbiglia. Yeah, that one's fun, man. I enjoyed rewatching that.
Yeah, I liked that one. I saw it a few years back.
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
You finally got around to it. What'd you think?
It's great. It's fantastic.
I
think it's really interesting that people are comparing that and Doctor Strange. Like, obviously, they're both multiverse movies, but I also feel like they're such different movies that it's not really fair to either one to compare them.
No, I agree.
Like, we can have two multiverse movies exist at the same time, and you can enjoy both of them, and you don't really have to compare them.
Yeah.
Finished Moon Knight.
I didn't think it stuck the landing. I was really disappointed with the finale.
Yeah, the last couple episodes did not blow my dick off.
It started so strong. The first 2 episodes I fucking loved. Third episode was okay. Fourth episode I was like, oh, that's a little better. But fifth and sixth episode just didn't do it for me. The ending was just so unsatisfying.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how they're going to handle gods in the MCU, because it feels like it's transitioning beyond the Thor version of a god that we have, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're actually dealing with gods having worshippers, and that contributes to their powers and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I know that Thor: Love and Thunder is going to deal with Gore the God Butcher, so I'm sure it'll be dealt with a bit in there.
We'll see.
But yeah, it feels weird having cosmic beings judging humans' morality and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't mind that. I just, spoiler. I'm just going to do a quick spoiler thing. At the end, they're having the big battle with the boss. The final, the bad guy and the hero are finally squaring off. And yeah, essentially. Yeah. Oh, they are kaijus technically. Yeah, the gods are giant. So the 2 gods are fighting, and then you've got their avatars, Moon Knight and Hero, are fighting. And there's another person who's got powers who didn't before. And the good guys get defeated, and then it goes black. And obviously we knew there was a third personality, because there's different times where neither of the personalities we knew about remember doing a thing. But then it just flashes back, and you just see all the bad guys dead, and it's just like, we didn't actually see the hero beat the villain, and that's so unfulfilling.
Yeah, they did that a couple times, and each time it's kind of like, ugh, okay, so I guess we're saving this for season 2.
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Any other things? Or should I shotgun mine?
Yeah, no. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, obviously. Horrible Bosses 1 and 2, which I've seen, but it was fun to rewatch the first one. And then the Firestarters.
Fun.
Yeah, the second one's not as good. And then we've been binging Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
I saw that. I've noticed a few of your posts on Degrams.
Yeah, it's so good, man. I'm bummed that I waited, but I'm glad that we finally got around to it.
It's a good show. We haven't finished it. We watched it when it was airing initially, and then we fell off of it, but I'm sure we're going to get back and start it over.
Yeah. And then just the new seasons of Hacks and Barry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I spent a lot of time on an airplane. I went to Barcelona for about a week and a half, and they're 14-hour flights, and I had layovers, so I watched a lot. So I'm going to shotgun a lot most of this. Into the Spider-Verse.
Nice.
Spider-Man,
Nice.
Spider-Man 2,
Nice.
Spider-Man 3,
Nice.
Amazing Spider-Man,
Nice.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Meh.
I watched the Captain America Winter Soldier.
Nice.
I watched The Prestige.
Nice.
V for Vendetta.
Nice.
Finally got around to House of Gucci.
Nice.
Before I went on my trip, I finished Arkham City. And
Nice.
after I got back, I started watching I started playing the new Horizon game that came out a couple months back. Enjoying that so far. Watched all of the
Nice.
Reacher show.
Oh, how was that?
Pretty solid. I enjoyed it. It's not amazing, but it's the characters are charismatic, and it's interesting. I enjoyed it. I thought the action in it was pretty solid. The story was pretty it's a mystery, but the mystery the twist was not much of a twist. I pretty much figured out episode 2 who was going to be the big bad.
Yeah,
but it was
very
fun.
smart boys. So.
Yeah, but I mean, even with me figuring out who it was going to be, I still overall enjoyed the charisma of the actors. The thing is, it's they're not necessarily good actors, but they were good for their roles and good for their characters.
Nice.
It was really easy to watch.
Nice.
And then I watched Multiverse of Madness.
Nice.
It came out the day that I got to Spain. And so I had to wait a week and a half and try to avoid spoilers. And I saw spoilers seriously 6 hours before I watched the movie. I was so mad. Multiverse of Madness. And then just a couple days ago, I started Suits. So I'm 3-4 episodes in.
Nice.
And I'm enjoying it. The premise is silly and totally unbelievable and would never happen. But once again, the characters are just charismatic and make it work.
Nice.
All right. 2022.
Yeah, summarize
Firestarter.
it.
All right, so this is exactly the same movie, but set contemporary. This is made by Blumhouse, with music by John Carpenter. Stars Zac Efron, and honestly, nobody else that I really recognize or knew who they were. I'm trying to think. Go back to it. No, nobody. Fix the whitewashing.
Kurtwood Smith,
slash
buddy.
Redskin.
Kurtwood
Smith. For a scene in the movie.
Yeah.
But that was nice. But then this one, they actually got a Native American to play the Native American character. So kudos
he
for
gets
fixing
a
that.
sick 90s S&M villain intro.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about both these movies, so the plots are pretty similar. This one cost $12 million to make. The 1984 version was also $12 million to make.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So, yeah, they had the same technically budget. Now, $12 million in 1984 was a lot more money than
Right.
$12 million is today, but I thought that was interesting. The thing about this movie that made it different is even though Zac Efron, I want to like Zac Efron. He's not good.
I really enjoy him in Neighbors, both of the Neighbors movies.
See, I hated both those movies.
Oh, really? So
I hated them.
I feel like I haven't seen the Ted Bundy thing, but I wouldn't be
He's
surprised.
okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was okay in that. But I feel like there's potential there, but I haven't seen him in anything that's really blown me away.
So he's okay in The Greatest Showman, but that's basically High School Musical for adults. So he overacts in that. He's kind of doing his High School Musical thing, but he did this documentary series on Netflix a few years back. I don't remember what it was called, but I actually really, really enjoyed it. I actually talked about it on this, but he was basically like, I'm famous. People know who I am. I've got a platform. I recognize that I don't really know anything about the environment or sustainability, but I want to. So he just goes all over the world and learns about sustainability in different countries. And he was really humble. He asked a lot of stupid questions, but he's just look, I don't know anything about this, but it's important and I want to know. So I was kind of enamored by that. And I was just I really appreciate somebody recognizing that they have a platform and that they're ignorant, so they shouldn't say anything until they go and learn about stuff. And so I thought that was really endearing. So I was man, I really want to see this guy be successful now. I was even he could be a decent Wolverine. He's not huge, but he's ripped. And, he could be gruff. He had a beard in that show. And then he was super hairy. And I was actually, he kind of looks like Wolverine. And he's got a little bit of crazy eyes. So I'm he could actually be a really solid Wolverine. I want to see him in a movie with a good director and a good writer. And maybe somebody can bring out a good performance from him. But we'll see. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, this was not that.
No, but I feel the love, I believed Andy really loved Charlie in the 1984 version.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel that as much in this one. I don't feel like there was any charisma or chemistry between him and the actress who played Charlie.
Yeah, he was very wooden.
And his motivation seemed weird, and he was really inconsistent. He was all for using his powers, but he didn't want her to use the powers. And it was just well, and the wife was why don't we train our daughter to use the powers so that way she doesn't accidentally hurt people like she does a bunch of times in the movie? And he's just no, I'm not going to do that because I get nosebleeds. What if she gets nosebleeds? And she's she's never gotten a nosebleed. from using her powers. Yeah, but what if she does? Well, maybe we should fucking find out.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but I do feel like it was more clear in this movie that there was a toll for him, at least using his power.
Yeah.
I bought that a little bit more. It made a little bit more sense.
Well, this one they made his eyes bleed versus his nose bleed, so it was a
Yeah,
little,
and I
little
didn't
gross.
like that though. I didn't like that his eyes were bleeding. I thought the nose was a better
Well,
effect.
Well, and they explained it at the end of the movie is that his brain was actually is what was bleeding, and it was coming out through the eyes.
Meh.
It doesn't make a big difference.
It was weird for them to open on a shot of the mom breastfeeding, I felt.
Whatever.
It made me
Who's
question
what they're
why.
meant for.
Yeah, but why? What does that have to do with the story?
Yeah,
It was
that's
just, like,
true.
distracting.
That's fair.
It made me think about why
It's-
they chose that, and I don't think there's a reason.
I don't know. Well, and, like both of these movies were like very short, which I appreciated. Like they were both
Yeah.
under 2 hours. This was 94 minutes with the credits.
The original is 2
And, like,
hours.
This one I feel like went the opposite direction. Like this movie just went so fast. Like there was no real character development. There was no really anything. It was just like we want to hit all the major scenes from the original movie, except for the ending. We're going to do a little bit of a twist at the end. And it was just like, we're here. And there was just like no real ramifications for anything.
Yeah.
Like they tried to explain a few things, like because this is set in modern times, like she goes to school and she asks the teacher a question, or she's dissecting a frog and accidentally like cuts it open, and the teacher's like, oh, you could watch a YouTube video and see what's going on. She's like, I don't have Google. And we find out she doesn't have internet because the government's tracking her. Like that makes sense. And I like those extra touches, but it didn't feel like those were brought up organically. It was just like, oh, we need to recognize that this is somebody on the run, so we just need to say they don't have internet. Like, I think it would have been more interesting if she didn't know the reason, because she didn't, and in the school library, she Googled some shit, and then that's what brought the bad guys. I think that would have been a better way of indicating that, instead of her just being like, I don't have the internet, and goes home like, Dad, I want the internet. You can't have the internet. We can't afford it.
Yeah, I think that would have made more sense. Hey, I have a question. Why is this movie so dark?
Dude, I don't fucking know.
Like almost every scene felt like it was underlit.
Absolutely. I absolutely was. And I think part of it was because they did CGI for everything. They did all the fire was CGI, so they probably were doing it to like make the CGI look less CGI.
Well, even the scene where she's playing dodgeball, because you were talking about school, and that's what reminded me. She's playing dodgeball in PE class, and the gym, like, all the lights are off, and it's like overcast
Yeah, it's
outside.
pretty dim.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah,
like, how are these kids even going to see where they're supposed to throw the ball?
I mean, maybe
I
they were
remember
just
playing
trying to-
dodgeball in gym class. It's bright. Gyms have
Yeah.
very bright lights.
and lots of windows.
Yeah.
Like, it's super weird. Well, and it's also just like maybe because it's a Blumhouse movie, and Blumhouse movies
Well,
always kind of have that gray tone.
My gym in high school did not have windows, but most of them do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this, and the other thing I didn't get about this is like they were talking about how they don't have internet and that they've been on the run and they've been in this particular place for like a little while, and they seem to be like established a little bit. But like she has her freak out because she gets hit in the head by a dodgeball, so she goes and runs and hides and like accidentally blows up a bathroom. And the government agency is not it's still called the Shop, but it's actually DSI, and they're like having satellite footage. It's like, why would they have been monitoring this little school? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I feel like the reaction to the explosion is very small too. Like there's an explosion in the bathroom while she's in the stall, and one of the teachers is like in the main part of the bathroom, like, Charlie, where are you? And she blows off the door of the stall, and there's like fire. And then later they're in the principal's office talking about it, and the teacher's just like, yeah, there's an explosion. It's pretty crazy. Like, you guys should kind of look into that or something.
And she didn't even tell us how she did it.
Yeah.
Like, it was
How
just
is-
like a stern talking to.
You have to assume that the teacher and the principal think that this is a normal little girl who's not capable of, pyrokinesis or whatever.
Right.
Don't they wonder how she survived that? Like, it's a
Yeah,
fucking
nothing.
explosion.
Yeah, it's super weird. Well, and then they're like, it'll never happen again. And the principal's like, well, how do you know? Don't worry, we'll make sure it never happens again. It's just like, no, like police would be involved, the
Yeah.
FBI, bomb squad, everyone would be like, is this a terrorist?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's super weird. I did it. The one thing I did like about this one, I did like how Andy is doing like, he's trying to bill himself as like a hypnotist to help people stop smoking.
Yeah.
And he's really just using the push on them
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I liked
was cool.
that.
Yeah, and they didn't really need to investigate what he does during the day, but that was a nice little touch. Like, yeah, that's probably what that guy would do.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering why he wouldn't like rob a bank.
Cameras. I don't know. I don't know, man.
I mean, I guess like that's a more honest way of doing it. He's helping people and stuff. But I feel like there's some bad guys out there that he could take some money from.
Yeah, like go to like a drug kingpin and just be like, "Give me your money, bitch."
Right. And, it's like maybe he can't afford luxuries for his family, but they're on the run. They might need more money to survive.
You
or
need
just
to be
more
liquid.
Liquidity, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I thought this movie was going to do and go a different place, because there was actually a sequel to the 1984 version, but it was a TV miniseries. And in the miniseries, from what I remember watching a couple episodes. Yeah, like her thing was like, some bad shit happened to me. I'm just going to use my powers for bad people. Like this one at the beginning, like there's a point where she goes up to the dad and was like, I feel something inside me. And he's like, oh, well, we should talk to your mom about that. And she's like, no, it's not like a sexual thing, like my powers. And she's like, the dad's like, yeah, the powers hurt. And she's like, no, I don't feel the hurt. I don't. Like, she kind of mentions that she kind of likes the feeling of having the powers. And so I thought this was maybe going to go darker because it's a Blumhouse movie where, like, Andy was going to have to, like, try to reel her in because she was going to enjoy killing people.
Right.
I thought that would have been a more interesting, darker version like you would expect from Blumhouse. But no, it was just, like, kind of an empty nothing. And then, like, it just kind of feels like they wanted to hit all the spots. So they do the same thing. They're hitchhiking to Boston. It's not a taxi driver, but he goes to the driver and is like, I'll give you $100, but gives him a single dollar bill.
Right.
But they go to Irv's house. This time the wife is in, she's
Iron
on,
lung.
like, she's like, she appears to be a vegetable, but she's not.
He's kept her alive for 30 years.
That's insane.
Well, I don't know if she's a vegetable, but she can't talk. Like
she can't talk or move.
Only Charlie could hear what she was thinking.
Yeah, she's not a vegetable. She's just like a brain and a body that can't do anything.
Right.
Which is incredibly sad. But we find out, like,
I think the husband's kind of a monster.
Yeah. Well, and he like lies about it. Yeah, he was drunk and got in a car accident and killed their son and made his wife an invalid.
Yeah.
That can't communicate. But this is like, I was like, okay, this is where the movie's going to start to like take off because the bad guys show up and she like doesn't do anything. Like it's not a big thing. Like in the original movie, like when the bad guys show up at the farm, she blows up a bunch of cars, burns a guy to a crisp. In this one, like, John Rainbird shows up and like kills all the guards and then like eventually goes and captures them. But it's like, it's nothing really happens. And then they get to, in this version, they just capture Andy. And then Charlie eventually like breaks into the facility and like they have her on camera and they just kind of like let her go around the facility for a bit.
Yeah.
And then like she shows up and she finds her dad and the dad's like, hey, just fucking kill me too. And this bad guy and then run. And then so she goes and like systematically kills people. But like in this, it seems like she uses her telepathy, the push, and everything else more than she uses her fire powers. Like in this, like the only thing she ever does is just kind of a fire blast. Like in the original movie, she like gets so hot that like cinder blocks are melting and glass is melting and steel is melting and fireballs that can move around and heat waves and making people spontaneously combust. And in this, she just does a couple of like fireballs and that's it.
Well, she has another superpower in this movie that she doesn't have in the old one, where in this movie, she's able to come up with cool action movie quips before she kills somebody.
Oh yeah, she did have a couple of those.
She
And
says, "Liar, liar, pants on
pants
fire."
on fire. And then yeah, it's just bad, but it's like, how do you do this movie in 2022 and have a worse finale? Like, I understand if it would be a CGI fest of fireballs and explosions, but how do you have a movie called Firestarter where she conservatively throws 10 fireballs in the movie?
Yeah, and it's Blumhouse too. Like we expect some more violence, right? Some more gore.
Yeah. Like, I
It's
honestly
not a tall
thought
order for that production
that
company.
she was gonna go like rogue and become evil and have that. No, it didn't happen. And then like like John Rainbird kills the mom at the beginning of the movie. In this version, John Rainbird has telepathic powers and understands these people. But at the end, like inexplicably,
Because he was kind of
like,
experimented on as well.
yeah, so inexplicably, she sees him at the end of the movie and kind of lets him live, and then she goes out to the beach, and he shows up, and then they like hold hands and walk into the woods, and it's like,
That's right. No, they walk along the beach.
yeah, and then it's just like, but why? Like, that guy still killed her mom.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, was not a huge fan of the ending.
And like, when she runs away from like Irv's house, Irv gets shot in this version. He doesn't die, but like the bad guys shoot him, and then she runs into the woods. Andy, once again, not using his powers properly, he just like does the Professor Xavier like fingers to his temples, really hard concentrating, and he just makes Rainbird think that Charlie's running north when she's actually running south. And then like he's like, oh, really clever. And then like you see her just get into the woods, but it's like, once again, why didn't Andy just be like, shoot yourself, slit your throat?
Yeah.
Like there's a point where you tell somebody, forget how to breathe.
Yeah.
Why not
Well,
do
that was
that to
that
him?
was before, and now he doesn't. He's a reformed man. He doesn't want to be violent anymore.
Right, but it's still like, why?
I'm joking. That's like not in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Well, no, there is a point where he says he doesn't want to like harm people. Like that is a thing because they mentioned that he killed. They like stole her as a baby, and then he went and killed people to get her back. Like she
Right.
was stolen from the hospital.
That's what he tells the guy to forget how to breathe.
Yeah. So it's like, why would you do this thing? Like, you just saw this guy massacre a bunch of people. Right. All you really did was buy her 30 seconds. Like, why didn't John Rainbird go into the woods and find her?
Yeah.
That doesn't make it, like, there's just even more logic holes in this. She goes and eats berries that she doesn't know what it is and drinks random water in the woods.
She starts a fire in the middle of, like, a bunch of, like, dead branches and
dry brush. Yeah, I have that written down, too. Like, what's funny, so getting to the music, I mentioned, like, God, this music sucks. It's generic. It didn't seem like normal John Carpenter music.
Interesting. That
Like,
didn't really stick out to me.
Because there was another movie. Oh, when we did the Doctor Strange movie from the 70s, I mentioned it kind of had some John Carpenter vibes, even though it wasn't him. Like, this to me didn't feel John Carpenter-esque. Like, there's even a point, like, when you mentioned, like, the S&M kind of intro to Rainbird. Yeah. I wrote that was a Nine Inch Nails knockoff music.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it wasn't great. They are in ongoing discussions to possibly expand the film into a franchise, though.
I don't see why. I mean, I guess it only cost $12 million, and they just advertised it on, like, Instagram.
Well,
so,
I think it made $12 million, so.
God, I can't think of anything really redeeming about this movie.
Yeah, just watch the original.
Yeah, like, there's just nothing to it. And the other thing, like, once again, one of the things that drove me crazy, I mentioned, like, her powers were less. The finale was less. Red Foreman is the doctor who made Lot 6, and he's just like, my advice, terminate him or she'll destroy us all. And he says she will do a nuclear explosion. Yeah, do a nuclear explosion. Like, that's what I want to see. Like, that would have been interesting if Rainbird still wanted to kill her. And if we had, like, Rainbird had telepathic powers or future powers. And, like, we see a premonition of her nuking a place. Like, almost like Deadpool 2 kind of thing. Like, Deadpool 2 was more of a Firestarter movie than this was.
Yeah, it's kind of a Chekhov's nuclear explosion, right? They mention it. Yeah. It's like, oh, fuck yeah, that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I would want to see her just go fucking crazy. Like, she mentioned she likes the powers. It would have been interesting if she got a taste for blood and, like, goes dark. And that would have been an interesting twist. And then I would have liked to see a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got nothing to say about this one.
I was gonna say, I feel like
Kindness.
it's. I was gonna say, I feel like it's. This is a movie. The original is a movie that I would say remake. Like, go ahead. I don't think it's a sacred cow.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I think it'd be
absolutely something that
improved
makes
upon,
sense.
and I think it could be updated for 2022.
Well, and what's frustrating is like we're in kind of a renaissance for Stephen King stuff. So we had, the 2 It movies which were both pretty fantastic. Pet Cemetery was pretty solid. They're doing they did The Stand on, I think it was CBS All Access, which is now Paramount Plus, which I heard was actually pretty solid. Like we've been getting some good Stephen King movies and TV series. Like, why is this so bad?
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting. I don't know if this is 2 movies or if they combine these ideas, but I think for a remake, it would have been interesting for them to set the story, or set, Charlie's story in 1984 again, and then maybe have her daughter have a story in 2022.
Yeah.
And that could either be a sequel, or maybe they're just 2 stories that are happening concurrently or whatever. But just having it be like a Stephen King story, and how popular 80s revival things are now.
Right.
1984, that's something. I'm
Yeah,
interested in
it's
that.
just there's so many ways this could have gone, and it's just like, yeah, like you said, this absolutely is a movie that should be remade. The original isn't amazing. It's not great. It's considered not a good movie. It has a following, but it's not like, I wouldn't even say it's a cult classic. Like, it just has its fans.
Yeah.
Absolutely remake
I
it.
don't think anybody's clamoring for a shot-for-shot remake of this.
No, and it just, yeah, I was really
Or the original.
disappointed in it. Like, I did not enjoy this movie at all.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a good place to stop.
Yep. All right, give us your plugs, bud.
Yeah. As always, I'm on Instagram at dyslexic, DYSAlexIC, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at Pulisci, PULISCI. And I've got all kinds of film, TV, and Elder Emo related merch in my Etsy store, Burn the Scene.
Yep. And you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods, get early access, bonus content, and it helps us keep the lights on, pay for movie rentals. We don't steal anything. We pay for every movie. So, yeah, we want to support artists, and we hope that you can support us as well.
Yeah. Cool.